Welcome to Dad Gardening 2021 Fall Winter Garden Tour. I haven't done a garden video in some time, pardon the mess, and the dogs. So I decided I would do a video showing the fall garden because I haven't done a gardening video in a while, like I just said. So I'm just going to start over here on I think this is the west side of the garden, with our tomatoes that were a total freak accident. If you're familiar with kind of the layout of my garden previously, and where we got, this barrel used to have all of our strawberries in it. And in the summer, some caterpillars and moths set in and just ravaged all of the strawberries to a point where we only had about one runner left, and it just wasn't doing so well, so I pulled them out. And I weeded out all the bad strawberries, but I had one little vine left and it just wasn't doing so hot. Incidentally, I'll get to those roses here in a second, but after we'd planted those roses, I noticed a little shoot growing up in the middle of it that turned out to be a tomato. And I was like, oh my God, is that a tomato? Seriously? And so I pulled it back and planted it in here in this barrel. And when I got it, it started off, it was only that big. It was like that when I planted it in here. And in the months since, it has sprung up and I had to put a trellis around it. And I'm already getting some flowers in here. And so it looks like I'm actually going to have some winter, I believe. And we don't know for sure. I'm just going by, there was the last tomatoes we had. And so it was the only tomatoes that would have been in the compost, because I believe that they got transplanted basically from the compost bin and me adding compost to these barrels. I believe these are going to be yellow pear tomatoes, which are what we've grown in the past. And what used to live on the other side of the yard. But now I have them right here. And it's doing really well. And I've been really, because in the past I've gotten really bad about, ooh, you see that right there? I'm glad I'm doing this. Let's look right in here. You see that right there? That there, little bastard, is a caterpillar. I don't want you on my tomatoes. Oh, I lost him. I'll have to fish him out here in a minute. Because the last thing I need is a caterpillar in my tomatoes. So I'll have to find him and fish him out of here. I'll probably throw him in the grass. Oh, there he is. There it is. Get out of there. Out. Go throw you in the grass. Wow, I can't believe I caught that. Yay, video. All right. Moving on from the tomatoes. Hopefully, I don't have any more caterpillars in here. I'm glad I caught that. Wow. I wouldn't have caught that if I wasn't filming. But moving on, what you saw previously are our roses. And again, if you remember previous videos, this used to be our sage bed. And we had a few small sage plants that we planted that just took off in this whole barrel and took it over. And the same caterpillars that ravaged the strawberry barrel are what infected both of them. And it just destroyed all of our sage. And so I unfortunately had to rip them all out. And we decided, you know what, we don't have any flowers in the garden, so let's get some roses. And so we got a few rose bushes. And this is actually our second blooming. We've had these since the middle of the summer, and they're doing very nice. This one is growing out a lot, and I may have to cage this. Ow. And for those of you who aren't aware, I don't know how, but if you aren't aware, roses have thorns. And even when they're, look at how itty bitty, where's the camera? There we go. Even itty bitty vines like this have all those little spiny hairs. Let me see if I can focus on that. Focus. Nope, it's not going to focus on it. Oh well. But all those little spiny hairs are all eventually turn into those. And those hurt. They're everywhere. But really happy with this. It was probably maybe only this tall when I planted this. This is only maybe 2 months of growth, really, maybe 3 months. And it's late November. It's actually the week of Thanksgiving. And I think I've maybe had this since early August, yeah, maybe. I don't remember exactly. I'd have to look it up. But pretty roses. These get a little sunburned up here just because we're in Phoenix Metro, and so the sun gets pretty intense. But these are heat tolerant roses, so that's why they're still growing. They aren't burning up or dying or anything. Moving along, we're moving along. We're coming over to the cucumbers. And again, if you recall in the past, my cucumbers usually live over there. But because crop rotation, we do make it a point to not plant the same thing in the same spot every year or every season. We've done cucumbers over on that side of the yard multiple times, and so actually, now that I think about it, I've done cucumbers there, we've done cucumbers here, we've done cucumbers, we just move them. We rotate the cucumbers because we grow cucumbers every season, and it's really hard, even with my wide lens, backing up, to get the whole plant because they just get huge. And believe it or not, this is one cucumber plant. We really roped it in this season because we knew how much they sprawl. And these were planted in late July from seed. One plant here. And it just took off. And it's actually not doing so well. Well, I mean, it's growing. And if I get in here, you can see the flowers, and you can see all the flowers in here, and they're so nice. And you'll see right in here a little cucumber that's been pollinated. I was gonna say fertilized. That's not quite the right word. But I know I've done this before with my pumpkins. But let's see if we can get in here so we can do another flower anatomy lesson. Oh, this vine is perfect. Because again, like pumpkins and squash, cucumbers necessitate a male and female flower. So here we have a male flower, nice and pretty, very open. And if you look at I'm dropping the vine, sorry. You look at the base, just a flower with a stem. On the end of this vine, if I can hold it up, is a female flower. And if you notice, the inside of the flower looks a little different. If I can get this to focus. So you can see the inside of that compared to the male flower. The male flower looks like that on the inside. The female flower looks like that on the inside. Kind of globular and glandular, I guess you could say. And of course, the biggest way to know the female flowers is there's the fruit. That's a little baby cucumber, unpollinated, unfertilized cucumber on the base of that. So that's how you know. And what you want to happen is the pollen from the male flower to go into the female flower, and then it turns that little unfertilized baby into a fertilized baby cucumber, which then grows into a full-size cucumber. And let me see, I know I've got some. I've had a hard time this season because it's fall and winter and the bees aren't as active right now. I've had a harder time getting them pollinated. But then once you see them, let's find one that's recently pollinated. This one, you can see when it's pollinated, the flower will dry up and you'll start seeing it basically kind of getting that, the spininess kind of goes away and you start seeing it shiny. And it starts to look like a cucumber. It starts getting, bulging up a little bit, getting bigger. And as it goes, a few days along, you end up with something looking more like this. This is only a few days after being pollinated. And you see this one as well. This is probably between those two. Up here. Between those two, this one, it's only, maybe 1.5 to 2 inches long. This one's a little bit longer. Let's see. I know I have various stages of cucumberdom in this bush. I gotta look around for them. Come down here. I've got one. Yeah, you see this one's about. Where are we? This one down here is a similar, if I can get past the leaves here, geez. There we go. Yeah, that one's kind of similar age to those. Thought I had a bigger one around here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. That's the other one I was looking for. You can see it right there. That's about that same age. And then you get to the back, and I got one back here. You get a nice big full-size cucumber. I'll probably be picking that one in the next day or two. Once they start turning, when they stop being completely green and they start turning yellow at the tip, then you know it's time to pull them out and go and pick them. And you keep picking them and they just keep producing. But right next to the cucumbers, I have my garlic patch. And the thing about this year's garden is, with exception to the cucumbers and the green beans, which we'll get to in a second, almost the whole rest of the garden are long-term growth. Garlic you plant in the early fall, and you don't pick it for 9 months, at least. We will not be picking this until April, and it will basically sit here all winter and do its thing. Ooh, hold on, sidebar. We gotta be. I don't get to see the bees very often right now. But we always seem to have a case with the cucumbers, especially what we've seen in the winter, of the cucumbers are almost entirely pollinated by a single bee. We don't have masses of bees like we did in the springtime in the pumpkins and cucumbers, where there were dozens of bees every morning. We usually have 1, maybe 2 bees that do all of the pollinating for the whole cucumber plant for the whole season. It's kind of crazy. But it was just cool to see that bee coming over. That looked like a wild bee. That didn't look like a regular honeybee. Anyway, back to the garlic. So yeah, the garlic will stay here and does its thing, grows, develops underground, and it does its whole thing and bulbs out and builds up the bulbs and does all this stuff until the springtime. And it just is a long, slow growth cycle. And last time I tried, I think I pulled them up a little too early, and so I didn't really get anything out of them. They didn't really bulb. They looked more like onions. But this time I'm hoping to do better. Hope. Crossing my fingers for good garlic this year. I may have to, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I may have to pull one of these because you can see they're right next to each other. That's probably going to create an issue when they're starting to grow out. But I don't know. Moving along, we have green beans. We've tried growing green beans in the past. Last year I tried growing green beans, and we were trying to do the Three Sisters method, where you grow green beans with corn and it's supposed to be a squash. And because we put the pumpkins over there, but we had the green beans and the corn here in the spring, didn't work. Basically, the corn that we had, we just didn't have enough space for it. The corn we had sucked all the nutrition out, so the green beans never really got that big. They literally didn't ever get much taller than these garlic greens are right now. This time, I actually just had to thin out these green beans because they were so overgrown. This one right here, as you can see, all these little green bean pods here, they never really got much bigger than that. This was probably the biggest you'd see of any of the green beans on this particular plant. But on the other two, this one back here, so I've got 3 right here. I got this one back here, even that one already, this one right here, you can see, already have bigger beans than that. But the thing is, I just picked this yesterday, so there's not a lot of big beans on here, but even there you can see what's on here right now is bigger than anything on this one. This one, I probably had 50 beans on it, but they were all itty bitty tiny things. They never really developed into full size, so I had to get rid of them. I just decided, you know what? I had probably a dozen or 2 dozen different vines breaking off of the main stem here. And I think it was a little starved for nutrition. It couldn't feed all of the beans that it had. If it was just one plant that was that size, I think it probably would have been fine if there was one plant right in here. But with 3 plants in this little space, it just couldn't keep up. It couldn't produce enough. It couldn't get enough energy to feed all those beans. But these other two plants have been doing really well. I currently have just over a pound of beans in my fridge. Let me give you an idea, because I just pulled these. I don't know how I missed these last night, but I just pulled these two off this morning off of this one right here. This has been my big producer. I probably pull 5 or 6 ounces of beans off of this one plant every 3 days. I could probably pull that one too, for now that I think about it. But yeah, I dropped a bean. I'll get it here in a second. Yeah, there it is. Oh, there it is. Green beans. What's really funny is I'm not particularly a fan of green beans, but my wife loves them, and so we're growing them, and we're getting so much, and they're doing so well. I'm really hoping now that I've thinned out this one a bit that it'll produce, and all these beans that are on here will grow up big and strong, and they grow so fast. I literally pick beans twice a week. I usually pick them Mondays and Fridays, and I'm able to pick beans this size off twice a week. It's crazy. You know, pick this thing clean. By Friday, I'll have probably 5 or 6 ounces this size, which are really nice and really fresh. And I'm like 2 or 3 weeks. I've got, like I said, I've got a little over a pound of beans in my fridge, not counting what we've used. I probably used another ½ pound already. Let's put these away. But green beans, super excited. I've got it. I'm just having to get used to eating them. That's really it. Look at all these. Look at how big these are already compared to that other bush. These are going to be huge like these other ones by the end of the week, for real. Herbs, herb garden. Here we are. All of this outright. This was planted from seed. I can't believe this grew. I really can't. I've got my dill here. We planted dill because obviously with all the cucumbers, we make pickles. And I've made pickles before, and I really want to make a video of me making pickles, but my kitchen's a mess and I don't want to film there. But all this dill, all this fresh dill, I think there's 3, let's see, 1, 2, it kind of looks like more than 1, but 3, if you can see back in there, 4, yeah, hard to see, but I've got 4 dill plants here. This one in the back obviously being the biggest, and then they kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 just progressively get smaller, but they're all doing really well, and all of it planted straight from seed. Just planted some dill seed in this little box. I have these sticks. These are actually just like mesquite branches from my front yard that I just decided to not grind up really, and I used them as spacers. And so doing really well. Now my whole hand smells like dill right now. It smells so good. I wish you could smell this. It smells so good right now. Speaking of smelling good, all my basil. And this is actually 2 different kinds of basil. This right here, the tall one back here, is a flat leaf Italian basil. Ooh, it's starting to flower too. You see all these little nubs right here are actually the flowers. Let me zoom in a bit. Boop. These are actually going to be the flower buds, and you can see right here, they're starting to open up. And that's really good because basil is a pest repellent. Most bugs do not like basil, but bees love it. So it'll attract more bees to the garden, hopefully to help with the cucumbers, hopefully maybe with some of the other flowers. So that's really nice. I don't even grow the basil to eat it. I don't use it enough, and I don't really use fresh basil for anything, but it smells really nice, and it helps deal with pests. This here, and which then also makes no sense, why am I growing 2 kinds of basil? Because this up here is a lemon basil. I don't know the difference really, but it's also about to go to flower, which is nice. Again, mostly I grow them for the bees. Basil attracts bees, so hey, I'm gonna grow it. And now my whole hand smells like an Italian restaurant. Speaking of Italian restaurants, this little guy, is oregano. And I actually have 3 of them. Again, everything planted from seed. This is like my little oregano that could, because as everything else here was springing up, this little guy was just kind of hanging. And it was just a little clump of leaves for a long time and didn't do much. And for probably 2 months, it never got much bigger than that. And then it turned into that. And then it turned into this. And yes, this isn't some weird time-lapse thingy. They just happened to grow in this way, and I think it's just an incidence of nutrition and one plant being stronger and taking the nutrients. I probably could just pull these out, but hey, I have oregano. I'm going to let it stay there. I'm not going to fault a plant for thriving. But yeah, there's my oregano. I'm so happy. I'm happy for my little oregano that could, because it's survived. Into the forest of corn that I have to back up so you can see. And a dog. Mystic, say hi. Nope. Okay. This is our popcorn. And like I said, everything else beyond the green beans and cucumbers are long-term growth. This is popcorn. It's not like sweet corn that you pick in you pick it once it's green and it's good to go and you go and throw it in a pot of boiling water. Nope, this is popcorn that you leave there until the entire plant has died. Everything is dried up. The plants have all dried completely down to the ground, and you're looking at a big fire hazard, kind of. But with popcorn, you let it dry on the stalk, in the box, in the ground, until it's completely done. Then you take it up, then you pick them, and then you hang them up to dry and cure for like 2 more months. So we won't be picking this, much like the garlic. We won't be picking this until probably April. See up here, up there, the tassels are where all the pollen lives. And up there, all the pollen is in the tassels. And if you get down here, we'll come down here, and you see the stalks. And see let's see, this is kind of a baby corn right here. But you see right here, all the silk at the top. Every strand of this connects to an individual kernel. You can see like on here, this is a bigger one. Every strand connects to an individual kernel of corn inside that corn husk, inside that cob. And so when the wind knocks these around, or we just come over and give them a good shake, and the pollen will fall down on my head. Pollen will fall down into these and catch on these and pollinate all of the stalks and all of the kernels. And if a particular piece of silk does not get any pollen on it, then that kernel inside that corn cob will in fact not develop. It'll just kind of shrivel up and die, and there won't be anything there to it. So you end up with these kind of splotchy looking corns. But that's okay. We're not growing corn to be pretty. Okay, we kind of are, because this is an ornamental type corn. But we aren't growing it necessarily to be pretty. We're growing it because we like it. Well, okay, we're growing it because it's pretty, because this is glass gem popcorn. And glass gem popcorn is very pretty, and that's why we grow it. But all this corn that we've got, I've mentioned on the podcast before. If you listen to the podcast and don't follow and follow the YouTube channel, which is a weird thing, down here, if you see the big stalks, like this guy, or let's put it to this one because it's easier to get on camera. This one, I planted that one. That's one corn kernel was planted there. And because corn is a grass, as it grows, it breaks off into different shoots, and you get the same one, like all these different little shoots. Same thing here. We got this big guy here, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, looks like 6 other side shoots, and all of those grow up into be big stalks like that, and then you get this forest of corn. And I have to go back and recount everything right now, but I got a lot of corn in here. So I'm super excited. But we won't be picking it until April. So I still got like, what, 4 or 5 months before we're even touching any of this. And then my prize, my super happy place, my potatoes. If you remember last winter, I believe it was, where I planted potatoes in with the melons and stuff, and just kind of as I think it was like our first video where I was digging up my garden and I had planted potatoes and forgot about them, and they'd started sprouting and I forgot, and so I had to replant them. But these I actually planted on purpose, and I planted 7 and 6 of them have sprouted, so that's fine. But these are all potato greens, and once these all flower, I theoretically would have potatoes in the ground. But again, that won't be until January at the earliest, I'm thinking. And ideally, if I wanted to get the biggest potatoes out, I wait until these die off completely, then I would dig them up and go in with a fork and churn this all up and dig it all out to get all the potatoes out. But I'm super happy. I'm growing potatoes. I've been trying to grow potatoes for so long. Now over to the other side of the garden where the tomatoes used to live are now red roses, which haven't quite bloomed yet. Again, this is our second bloom. And this one's a little bit behind the pink roses. But I've got some nice blossoms here. These ones are doing very nice. This one's much taller, so I'm very happy with it. My neighbor's dog decided to wake up. And we've made it to the other side of the garden, which is basically what we're calling the salad bed, because we've always grown lettuce right there. Ooh, down here, we have our celery. With all of our celeries. I planted these from starters that I got at Home Depot, I think. It was Home Depot or Walmart. Believe it or not, Walmart has some really good vegetable starter seedlings in their garden center. And so I've gotten some really good results growing plants and growing vegetables from Walmart. Actually, most of my seeds actually come from Walmart, believe it or not. And look at this. It's like this, and this is another one where it's going to grow until they're about yay high. In the springtime, I won't be picking these until like February. But look at that. I'm growing celery. It's crazy. And I got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 celeries here. That's gonna be crazy. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with them. Right here, I don't know why I keep standing up because I gotta move, are my carrots. Again, planted from seed. Planted from seed from Walmart. And some sort of a weed that's down there that I needed to pull out. There. Weeding while showing you my carrots. See down here, they're starting to get pretty big. Get down in there. I'm so happy because last year I grew carrots and they were so sweet and they were so awesome. I loved it. And I'm super excited growing carrots this year, and I got way more carrots this year than I did last year, and they're so much bigger already. I'm super excited. Just digging through all my carrots. I don't even know how many I have here, really, because the thing about carrot seeds is they're really small and you just kind of spread them. And I planted them in rows, and then I didn't think they took. I think Mystic dug up the garden, and so I went ahead and planted some new rows. And then they started springing up. And the same thing actually happened with the celery, if you see. And I pointed out all these big ones. Yes, get that off there. All the big ones that I planted from starters. But if you look right here, these are actually celery that I'm growing from seed, because at the same time as I planted the carrots, I planted a bunch of celery seed. And so down here, these are all baby celeries that I had planted, and they didn't spring up until these guys were well and planted and established, but then they finally started spraying up. And so rather than pull them out, I decided, you know what, by the time these guys are this big, these will be coming out, so I'll just have a second wave of celery. So it'll be pretty awesome. And my carrots, and I'm so happy for my carrots. And then my lettuce. And once again, back here I've got my red my garden red, or what is it, a salad red lettuce that I planted from seed. Again, Walmart seeds, they're doing fine. And these, they take forever to get started, but once they do, they really spring up. And then all of these are my romaines that I need to kind of clean up a bit. But there's all my romaine that I grew from starters. Again, same time as I got these. And I've got all this romaine that I can just come out here and pick, and I've got fresh romaine lettuce. And I actually just bought a salad spinner. And I don't care if maybe some bugs ate some holes in them and I've got some sunspots. I don't care. Wash them, run them through my salad spinner. Fresh lettuce, whenever I need it. It's like, oh, it's taco night, go get lettuce. I've got so much of them. I think I've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heads here, plus those 2 ones in the back that aren't quite ready. Just throw this, because I crushed it. Throw this in my compost. There's all the green beans. I told you I just pruned the green beans. That's all what I just took off of those green beans. I need to do some pruning here in the lettuce. I really do. I got a lot of these, especially like these that are right here in the corner. This tends to bunch up into that. You can see all that green right there, where these will just kind of rub up against it and wear down. But it's okay, because I've got a crap ton of lettuce. I can just pull these out and they'll be fine. Or I can feed them to the dogs, because the dogs can totally eat this. But that is my garden. I'm super excited for my fall garden. The only things, like I said, the only things that we're getting to use like immediately are that lettuce, I could actually I've actually pulled some of the dill and the basil. The dill and basil if I wanted to. Getting green beans, and I'll have some cucumbers here very shortly. But that's my garden. Super excited. Fall garden's working. Lots of roses coming in. Hopefully lots of tomatoes. And until I manage to make another video. Bye?